Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about hope.
Hope?
Yeah, hope. But we're going to be looking at it through maybe some unexpected sources.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
All right, so we've got this passage from the book of Deuteronomy
Okay.
and an excerpt from a book by Don P. Baker. It's called, appropriately enough, Hope.
Interesting combination. I'm curious to see where this goes.
Me too. So in Deuteronomy, it talks about this idea of walking in obedience as a way to find life, prosperity, and prolonged days.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me.
Yeah. Who wouldn't want that?
Right. But, what does that even mean, like practically speaking?
Well, I think for the ancient Israelites, this idea of obedience wasn't just about blindly following rules.
Mhm.
It was about trusting in a path, a path that was laid out for them by a higher power.
Okay. So that makes sense in a religious context.
Yeah.
But Don Baker, in his book, he kind of takes it a step further.
Okay. He says obedience isn't about legalism.
Oh, interesting.
It's about trusting that God's instructions lead to life, peace, and fulfillment.
I see. So Baker's really emphasizing the trust aspect here.
Yeah.
Like it's not just about blindly following orders.
Right.
It's about having faith that the path you're on, that it's actually leading you towards something good, something fulfilling.
I like that. So it's more about like guidance and trust.
Exactly. It's like having like a mentor, right?
Right.
Someone who's been there, done that, and they're sharing their wisdom with you to help you thrive.
Hmm. And I can see how that idea that could apply even beyond religion,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, we all have mentors in our lives, role models, people we look up to, or even just, the accumulated knowledge of humanity that's been passed down to us.
Right. It's like why reinvent the wheel when you can learn from those who've come before you.
Totally. So we've got this idea of walking the path towards a more fulfilling life.
But Deuteronomy also mentions this thing about not turning aside to the right or to the left.
Oh, interesting.
Like there are these temptations, these distractions that are trying to pull us off course.
Hmm. And it seems like those distractions, those haven't gone away, have they?
Nope, not at all.
If anything, I think they've multiplied in our modern world.
Right.
I mean, think about it. We are just bombarded with information, choices, pressures all the time. It can be really tough to stay focused on what truly matters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like this constant battle for our attention. So what would be some of those right or left turns that we face today? I mean, the Israelites, they had their idols and false prophets.
Right.
What are our modern day equivalents?
Well, I think one big one is social media. The constant comparison, the pressure to present this perfect image of ourselves.
Uh-huh.
It could really pull us away from our values and what truly matters.
Yeah. It's funny you should mention social media because I've definitely caught myself spending, way too much time scrolling through feeds
Yeah.
and feeling envious, feeling inadequate, just not great afterward.
It's like we're trading real connection for these fleeting, superficial interactions.
Exactly. And then there's also this whole thing with quick fixes, instant gratification.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, we're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us we can, lose weight effortlessly or achieve financial success overnight or find love with like the click of a button.
Right.
You
And
know?
and these things, they might offer some temporary relief or satisfaction, but ultimately they distract us from the real work and the real growth that leads to lasting fulfillment.
It's like we're so focused on the destination, right?
Yeah.
That we forget to actually enjoy the journey, and we end up, taking shortcuts that ultimately lead us further away from where we want to be.
That's so true. And
Yeah.
and that's where I think this idea of discernment comes in.
Discernment.
Yeah. Being able to tell the difference between what truly serves us, what actually moves us closer to our goals, our values,
Oh, okay.
and what just, pulls us off course.
So discernment is key. But what does that actually look like, in practice? How do we develop this ability to make wise choices in a world that's full of distractions?
That's a great question, and it's something I think we're gonna dive into a little bit deeper in the next part of our deep dive.
All right. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
It's funny, when I was reading through Baker's book,
Yeah.
he doesn't just say like obey.
Yeah.
It specifically says be careful to do.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like it's highlighting that conscious effort, right? It's
Right,
not
right,
just
right.
going through the motions. You really have to,
The intentional.
yes, Be intentional. Make those choices
Yeah.
that are going to keep you on that path that you want to be on.
So speaking of those choices, I mean, how do we even know
Right.
what to choose? I mean, how do we figure out like what are the right turns and what are the wrong turns in our lives?
Well, maybe one way to think about it is to
Yeah.
to start with your values. Like what do you really want to achieve in life?
Uh-huh.
What kind of a person do you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you have a sense of those things,
Yeah.
you can start to look at your choices and your actions and see, are these moving me
Yeah.
closer to that person I want to be, or
Or further away.
further away? Yeah.
I like that. So it's like having a compass, right? To kind
It's
of
okay.
guide us
For our
through
wilderness of
a
lives.
compass or maybe like,
Yeah.
a map.
A map. Yeah. To make sure we're headed in the right direction.
Exactly. Yeah. And well, I was just going to say, but those distractions though, I mean, they can be pretty tempting sometimes.
Oh, tell me about it.
Like, how do we actually like resist those shiny objects?
Well, one thing that comes to mind for me is
Yeah.
is is mindfulness. Like really being present,
Yeah.
paying attention to what you're doing, what you're feeling, what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Because when you're mindful, you're more likely to notice
Hmm.
when something is starting to pull you off track, when it's not really serving you.
So mindfulness helps us be aware of those distractions. But
Yeah.
what about like the actual like resisting them?
Right. Yeah.
Because, sometimes it feels like those temptations, they just have this magnetic pull.
Yeah. Yeah, they really do, and it's tough.
Yeah.
It makes me think about the Israelites and their journey.
Yeah.
They faced so many temptations, so many challenges on their way to the promised land.
Yeah.
But they were able to stay on track,
Mhm.
to ultimately reach their destination,
Right.
because they had that faith in God's guidance. And so for us today,
Yeah.
maybe that means leaning on our own sources of strength,
Yep.
whether that's
Yeah.
our own personal values or the support of our loved ones.
Or even like a mentor or
A mentor.
yeah, a mentor, exactly.
So it's like we don't have to.
You don't have to go it alone.
Yeah, we don't have to do it alone.
You have people
Yeah,
you can rely on.
that can support us.
Yeah, that can support you, exactly.
It's funny, when I was thinking about this idea of obedience,
Yeah.
in Baker's book, he talks about how, it's not just about
Right.
avoiding negative consequences, it's also about embracing the positive outcomes
Oh, I like that.
that
Yeah.
that come from walking the right path.
Yes. Yeah, he really emphasizes that.
Yeah.
Like God's instructions, he says they lead to life, peace, and fulfillment.
So it's not just about avoiding punishment.
Yeah.
It's about experiencing all of the good things
Yeah.
that come with following that path.
Yeah, it really kind of reframes the whole thing, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not about restriction. It's not about deprivation.
Right.
It's about living a life
Yeah.
that's truly fulfilling.
That's aligned with our values.
Aligned with your values. Exactly.
But how do we actually do that? Like how do we cultivate
Yeah.
that sense of discernment, that intentionality in our daily life?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah, it's easy to talk about it,
Yeah.
but how do we actually put it into practice?
That's a great question. And it's something I think we should probably say for our next segment, because
Okay.
it's a big one.
Yeah.
And it deserves its own little deep dive, I think.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to that. All right. So, we've spent a good amount of time now talking about this idea of walking the path, right? Like walking the path of life with intention, with discernment. But how do we actually like make this happen
Right.
in our everyday lives?
Yeah, that's the big question. And I think there are actually some practical things that we can do.
Mhm.
We were talking earlier about those right and left turns,
Right.
the distractions.
The distractions that pull us off
Yeah,
target.
exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways I think to avoid those is to actually define your own path.
Okay.
Like proactively.
I like that. But how do you define your path? Is it like making a map of your ideal life or something?
You could think of it that way.
Yeah.
It really starts with setting clear goals.
Mm-hmm.
Like what do you really want to achieve?
Okay.
And this could be anything, right? This could be career aspirations. It could be creative projects you want to work on, personal growth, relationships, contributions you want to make to your community, whatever really lights you up.
Mm.
Those are the things that you want to, set your sights on.
So those goals, like those become our compass points, right? To
That's
kind of
yeah,
help us navigate through all the noise and all the distractions.
exactly. But the thing is, like those big audacious goals, those can feel really overwhelming
Yeah,
if you
definitely.
try to like tackle them all at once. So that's where I think breaking them down into smaller steps can be really helpful.
Oh, the power of baby steps.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that approach. It's way less intimidating,
Yeah.
and it's just easier to stay motivated when you're focused on one small step at a time.
Exactly. So, instead of write a novel, it's like write a page a day.
Right.
Instead of run a marathon, it's like go for a 30-minute jog 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Like those small consistent actions,
Right.
those are the things that really build momentum and create that sense of accomplishment that keeps you moving forward.
I love that. Small steps, big journeys. It's
Yeah.
like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But, let's be real. Sometimes even those small steps can feel tough. Life gets in the way.
Oh yeah.
Distractions pop up. Motivation can kind of, ebb and flow.
Absolutely. And that's where I think routines and rituals can be really helpful.
Yeah.
They provide that structure, that consistency
Right.
that can make it easier to stay on track even when, life gets crazy.
So like setting aside dedicated time for focused work or scheduling an exercise or even just like having a simple morning routine.
Exactly. Like by
Huh.
by building those habits into your day, you're essentially creating a framework for your life. And
Right.
that framework helps you to prioritize what matters most.
Yeah.
And it reduces the chance of getting, sidetracked by all those less important things.
Yeah, I like that. Like building in those guardrails,
Yeah.
to kind of keep us on the path. But here's the thing, like life isn't always predictable.
Yep.
Things happen, plans change. We can't always, you know, stick to the script perfectly.
Absolutely. And that's where I think, flexibility comes in. It's not about being, rigid or beating yourself up if things don't go exactly as planned.
Yeah.
It's about being adaptable. It's about being willing to adjust your course when needed.
So it's like being a skilled sailor, right? Like you have your destination in mind, but you also, you know how to adjust your sails when the wind changes.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you remember that discernment that we talked about earlier?
Uh-huh.
That plays a huge role, I think, in navigating all of those twists and turns because sometimes it's not just about, adjusting the sails. It's about knowing which direction to sail in the first place.
Right, right. So how do we make sure that we're making the right adjustments, the ones that are gonna keep us aligned with our true north? How do we know that we're not just reacting to every little change in the wind, but actually staying true to the course that we've set for ourselves?
That's a great question, and I think it involves tapping into something that goes beyond just, logic and planning.
Yeah.
I think it's about tuning into your intuition.
Okay. Intuition.
Yeah, that inner voice that guides you towards what feels right.
Okay. But intuition can be kind of tricky. Like how do we know if it's really our true inner voice or if it's just like wishful thinking disguised as guidance?
That's a really good question. And honestly, I think the answer is practice. It's cultivating that connection with yourself through mindfulness, through self-reflection, and really paying attention to those gut feelings. Like the more you do that, the better you become at recognizing the difference between your authentic inner voice and those kind of fleeting desires or those external pressures that might be leading you astray.
So it's not just about having, a goal or a plan. It's also about developing that self-awareness to know when you need to course correct and then trusting that inner compass to guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, you got it. But here's the thing, like even with the best intentions, the clearest goals, a strong inner compass, there will be times when we make mistakes.
Of course.
We might take a wrong turn, we might get
Oh,
distracted, we might even lose sight of our destination altogether. And that's okay. It's part of the journey.
yeah. That's actually really reassuring to hear. Because I think sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves, to get it right, to be perfect,
Yeah, yeah.
that we forget that it's okay to stumble, you know? It's okay to get lost. It's even okay to change our minds about our destination altogether.
Totally. Like it's not about striving for perfection.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
about embracing the messy, the imperfect nature of life.
Yeah.
You know, and being willing to learn and grow from those experiences. And sometimes, that might mean seeking out guidance and support from others.
Right.
It's like having a team of navigators to help you, chart the best course.
Yeah. I like that. Talking to, trusted friends, mentors, therapists, spiritual advisors, whoever it might be,
Yeah,
can just provide such valuable perspectives and just help us sort through those tricky decisions.
totally. And remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Ah, that's good.
Embrace those ups and downs, the lessons learned, the growth that you experience along the way.
Yeah. That's beautiful. It's not about, striving for some perfect idealized outcome. It's about living fully in each moment and trusting that the path itself is leading us exactly where we need to be. So as we wrap up our deep dive today, what's the one key takeaway that you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the big one is that you have the power to choose your path
Hmm.
and to navigate it with intention, with resilience, and with a deep trust in your own inner wisdom. Embrace the journey. And remember, hope is not a destination, it's a way of traveling.
On that note, we'll leave you to ponder your own path and the choices that will shape your journey. Until next time, fellow explorers, keep diving deep